Yay! Yay!
How are you?
I'm good. Hello. So just to let folks know who are, sorry, I'm bouncing my camera around here. I'm still holding on to my phone so I can do things, and then I'll set it down and it'll be stable. Just to let everybody know, usually for these, I turn the comments off so that everybody can see Tara's face because they kind of scroll in front of the guest's face. But at the very end, I turn them back on. So if anybody has any questions, just hold on till the end and then we will be able to go over those. All right, there we go.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all, because I know it's late and it's winter time and everyone's sort of hunkered down for the night.
Yeah.
Still fun to be on. So thanks.
Well, I'm super excited to be able to talk to you. I got to read Tara's book as a ARC a few weeks ago, and I really, really liked it. So I was super excited when we got to have an opportunity to have her on our little live show that we've been doing. Tara, if you could start off, for those of you, the audience that have not had a chance to read the book yet, if you could just tell a little bit about it without giving anything away, because there's lots of mysterious things that we don't want people to learn about.
Exactly. Okay, so No Beauties or Monsters is about one desert town with a lot of disappearances and one teenager who's determined to find her missing friend. And it starts off with 17-year-old Riley, who's being forced to move from San Diego to this remote town in the Mojave Desert of California. And Riley's in high school, so she doesn't want to move. She doesn't want to leave her friends behind. But she also is feeling hesitant about moving. And she's right to do that because strange things start happening when she gets to the desert. And among them, she finds out that an old friend of hers has gone missing on a hiking trip in the area near Joshua Tree National Park. So how did I do? No spoilers there.
You did awesome. No spoilers. And I'm just going to jump right into, like, one of the things that I just really loved about this book is the sense of place. And I know that features into the story, and I'm guessing it features into the origin story of the book too. So I'm going to let you just tell us a little bit about, I'm always curious about how books come to be. I know some people, it's like the book, like springs to life and then they can just write it down. And other people, it starts with the kernel of an idea and then kind of slowly goes from there. So.
Well, I always love when writers answer this question too. And someone asked me in an event the other day this very question. And I realized it really had like two parts. So the initial seed of the idea was from a road trip. I was living in California at the time, and I took a road trip with my husband out to the Mojave Desert and to Death Valley. And I had never really been in that area before. So it was so striking to me and just so incredibly sort of beautiful and harsh all at the same time, which was an interesting dichotomy. And it just got my imagination going. And then I started digging deeper and reading about the area, reading about the history, the legends and the lore. And there were just so many elements that really fired my imagination, like I said. And then, stories sort of just sprung up from that atmosphere of the place. But the other side of it, I think, for No Beauties or Monsters, kind of calls back to writing a story that I would have related to as a teenager. So from like a character perspective, at least, the idea for Riley was really channeled from personal experience. So she is being forced to move around a lot. Her mom's in the military, so that's why they're moving. And even though I wasn't a military kid, my kids are, but also my family just moved around a lot because of my dad's job. We moved to like a different state every year, every 2 years until I was 12. And so that sort of like uncertainty of not knowing your surroundings, not knowing what it's going to be like, leaving friends behind, having being forced to make new friends or wondering if you will, like that sort of all fed into Riley's character. So I'd say those are sort of that was what came together to create the initial ideas of the story.
How much, this is another question that I always like to ask in addition to the origin story, because I think as a writer myself, like there's been times where people have been like, oh, I can see you layered this meaning and da 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 da, and I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, I meant to do that. And so I'm always interested for other writers, like how much of the atmosphere and the setting and that sort of thing, the plot and stuff, just comes organic, and how much of that, you said you did research on the lore of the region and stuff, and how much of that is more purposefully layered in. And I suspect that's probably different for every work, but maybe for this one specifically.
Yeah, I think because setting and place were really the inspiration behind the idea. A lot of times I actually have to hold myself back from writing too much, but this story, I mean, setting really contributed to the mood and the atmosphere. So it was sort of like an instant layer. But I also worked it into plot, and that maybe came after because, every detail of the setting is relevant. And so, for example, because it's about Joshua Tree National Park, some of the scenes and some of the plot points involve things that you would do at a national park, and in particular, like this one. So a hiking trip gone awry, for example. And character-wise, I mean, I think setting definitely is filtered through their psyche as well. So we get to see the setting through Riley's point of view. And so she notices, she's a rock climber, for example, so she will notice rock formations in the landscape first and foremost. So we really notice details through her. And then, of course, all of those setting details should be important, as I was saying before, with like relevance. I mean, they should be important to the forward motion of the story. So since it's a mystery thriller, there are a lot of sort of clues planted in the setting along the way too. Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of this next one. This one just came off the top of my head, but like I know that there is a particular thing in the book, creature, character, whatever that's in the book. Does that come from the local mythology and lore?
Yeah, I would say that it's sort of a composite of a lot of stories that I was reading in the area.
Yeah. And I'll now you'll have to all go read the book to hear what I'm talking about, but because I don't want to say too much. So for those people who have just popped in, because I know this is the kind of thing people pop in and out of, we're talking to Tara Goedjen, and she wrote No Beauties, No Monsters, which is a YA mystery that just came out last Tuesday. And another question, this one's a reader kind of a question. I thought, I got introduced to this book, just for those of you who don't know, is by writer Kelly Garrett, who had reached out to me and said, hey, I know this book that's coming out and this author. And I immediately went and downloaded it, because I'm lucky enough to be able to do that through working for the bookstore, and started reading it. And I was just, one thing that I thought was super compelling and kept me reading, I was making dinner and sitting in the kitchen reading. She's like shoving it into all these little things, lunch break and whatnot. And I think that what was really interesting in this book is, I think the term is unreliable narrator. Like, you never knew what was real and what wasn't real in what was going on. Like what from Riley's perspective, like, she's seeing things. Are these things really happening? Are these things really not happening? I'm curious if there's anything challenging as an author when you're working with a narrator that maybe is or isn't seeing things that are really there, and are they really there? Does that present challenges as an author to try to keep track of those threads and figure out how you're going to present it without giving too much away, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think when an unreliable narrator is justified, which in that I mean that there's a reason for it, and the character is not just lying to you, for example, I think it can be a sort of trope to introduce intrigue, and also just get even the reader to sort of be asking questions too, and get them more involved in the mystery. And so it introduces a lot of tension just right off the bat. But like specifically to No Beauties or Monsters, Riley is unreliable because she can't quite remember what's happened, and she's had a hiking accident. So that's the reason behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, as she's trying to recreate what she remembers, some of her memories start to seem impossible. And that's when she has to wonder.
Right.
A double layer where she has to wonder if what she's remembering is real or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think one of the challenges, though, is really, you know, you're raising multiple questions then, because not only do you have this mystery, you have something that I promise the book solves at the end. So Riley's trying to figure out where her friend went, why she disappeared, but she's also dealing with that internal struggle of not quite knowing why she's missing these chunks of time.
Right.
And so there's a lot of questions that are introduced. So I think that is the difficulty with the unreliable narrator. And what I tried to do to combat that was give the reader a piece of information with every question that's raised. So like each chapter, I tried to make sure that something was revealed to the reader, as well as sort of like another question was raised, right?
Yeah. And I went out and looked. Oh, we're going to get joined by a friend here.
All right.
Not Dickens, though. I'm at home. This is one of mine. Hello, baby. I went back and looked because I knew you had another book out, so I had to go look and see, what was it. And so Tara has another book called The Breathless, which I have not read yet, but now I'm going to have to go check it out. But it also looks like it's a slightly spooky, supernatural edge kind of a YA book. And so then that begs the question to me, like, what do you love about these kind of stories? What draws you into telling these kind of stories?
Sort of like eerie stories, or
just with an element of mystery, or you don't know exactly what's happening, or for me, again, it was that something that I enjoyed was, I mean, it is a mystery, but there's also kind of layers of, some of the characters are going through trauma, and so they're struggling with mental health issues, and so that brings a layer of, they're not sure themselves of what's real and what's not sometimes, just because of that sort of layer of not knowing and not being able to fully trust themselves. And so I just really think that makes it a little bit more like layered than just a straight up, whodunit. So that I really love that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know personally I've always loved stories that make me sort of think a little bit and make me sort of question my perception and sort of look beyond everyday reality. And so that's what I've turned to reading too. I mean, even from a small age, I kind of grew up reading Stephen King and also stories about the Loch Ness Monster, so I always loved sort of that. I was just a very curious person, and I loved the idea that there could be things in the world that we can't really see with our five senses. And like, for example, as I was getting ready for this, the light in my laundry room was flickering. And of course it means that the bulb needs to be changed, right?
Yeah.
But like the writer side of my brain was like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's kind of funny. I was thinking, my mom used to sort of ask that same question that you did, like, why do you like to insert sort of eeriness or creepiness into your books? And I remember like writing stories in third grade, and I wrote this story about children going missing at midnight, and it won. My teacher like called me up one day and he's like, it won the regional contest. I submitted it without telling now it's going to go on to the national contest. And he's like, I just want you to reread it tonight. Let me know if you want to change anything, and then I'll submit it for you. So I take it home, and like my mom reads it, and she's like, oh my goodness, all these children are disappearing. So you want them to return at the end of the story? So I changed the ending, and I took it back to my teacher the next day, and he was like, are you sure you want to change it to this ending? Anyway, we sent it in, and it did not win. But I think, and now, I'm realizing I basically rewrote that story that I wrote at 9 about people going missing, but hopefully it's more sophisticated now. So,
well, maybe we're just telling the same story in all kinds of really interesting ways. And I'm just curious too, like what draws you to YA specifically? Is it because you can tell the kind of stories you want to tell, or is it just because that's what you have loved? Or
I mean, I think that I like writing YA and I like writing adult, but I think that YA is sort of has been my go-to. At least The Breathless and No Beauties or Monsters are both in that category. But it's I think it goes back to my love of reading as a child, and like when I was moving so much, I was always taking books with me because they were kind of a shield. You took them to the cafeteria, you took them to recess, so you didn't have to be alone and you didn't have to worry about making friends. Your book was your friend, and I did make friends, but of course, that was my way of sort of probably coping with moving around a lot, um, and I think that those early years reading was so magical for me. Like even in high school, that's what I did. I played sports and I read all the time. I took books to classes. I got in trouble for it. I closed my eyes, like dreamed of I saw my thoughts in words, like in print on a page because I'd been reading so much. And I think that because it was so important to me, I kind of wanted to write books for 12 plus audience because books were so important to me as a teenager. So I kind of wanted to like contribute it that way. And I remember even when I was little, just knowing, before you realize how the world works, like just knowing that I would write a novel one day because I wanted the same that
yeah,
that had
yeah,
done for me. Yeah.
that's very cool.
Yeah.
And the other question I have is, I know that you have two small people in your life, and I'm curious, how do you find moments to nurture your own creativity through all of that? And this is a question that probably bends toward if there's any other writers in the audience or any others that will watch later, because I know how hard that can be and how you can, you're doing work of, a book that you have to get done because you have deadlines, and then you have all the kid stuff, and then but you have to kind of keep that creative juices flowing too, and that can be a hard.
Yeah.
I don't know that we ever get the balance going.
I don't know that I have any answers, but I know that creativity with small kids, that is a hard one. Except that they're children are the most creative people, right? They haven't been conditioned the way that adults have. Like my goal is to write more of my 4-year-old's like little sayings down because she continually sort of shocks me and makes me see the world in a different way when she talks, because it's just so like, oh, remarkable. Like maybe I'm biased, but I think it's very good what she says. But I guess, we're also limited in our time when we have kids. So getting outside for me has always been a way to sort of refill the well, which you can do with little kids. And of course, Joshua Tree National Park is in No Beauties or Monsters. But even if you don't have a national park next to you, just getting outside in the woods or looking at the sky or, the stars, that kind of helps. But then, of course, there's the practical side of writing and being a creative, even if you're an artist or whatever it happens to be, or just getting work done with small children, no matter what kind of work it is hard, right? So I think carving out those moments of solitude, if it's late at night or early in the morning, I'm still working on that, trying to find this.
Yeah, and it changes as they get to be different ages too. So yeah,
and not being so precious about it too. Like I think I remember when I was younger, like I had to have everything perfect to start writing or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's like, no, you just try to make it happen. Put on your headphones,
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Oscar. He likes to come in during the live recordings and say hello to everybody.
He's like, time to go to sleep, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. And then what I've been asking everybody else recently is, do you have favorite books from the last year? Either books that you loved and read, or books that you read to your kids and they loved?
Well, usually I'm really bad at favorites, naming favorites, but I thought that you might ask me this, so I can prepare. I guess adult-wise, I really enjoyed Lucy Foley's The Guest List, because it's set on in an island, and it involves a wedding gone wrong on this remote island. And of course, I love sort of atmospheric books that have these remote settings, isolated settings. And so I really enjoyed that one. YA wise, I'm a little late to the game, but I really enjoyed Demetra Brodsky's Dive Smack, which also involves sort of a teenager going through a mystery, and sort of it ends up having a speculative twist, which is delightful. But I've also been meaning to read YA wise June Her's The Forest of Stolen Girls, I think it is, which obviously kind of from the title you can tell it involves missing people as well. Yeah. But it's set in like the 1400s in Korea, so I've been meaning to pick that one up. And then kid wise, I think, okay, this is a library find, and it's called While You're Sleeping by Mick Jackson and John Broadley or something, Broadley maybe. But it's just so whimsical. It's set in London. I think it's a beautiful book. I've loved reading. I love the artwork too. And then I guess for every parent, because it's late too, I will recommend this book. Every parent of small children should have this one, which is This Book is Sleeping.
Oh, I have not seen that one. That looks fun.
Yeah, by Cedric Ramadier and Vincent Bourgo, it looks like. But it is just, it's the one book that both of my small daughters have really enjoyed. And, you know, when you have kids, it's like, you never know what they're going to like. But this was a winner for both of them.
Oh, that's cool. What was the second one? Dive?
Oh, wait, which one?
The second one you listed?
Dive Smack.
S-M-A-C-K?
S-M-A-C-K, yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah, it just reminded me of No Beauties or Monsters in a lot of ways, but even though it was a completely different book, like the narrator or the main character in that book is also athletic, but he's a diver, so hence the name.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, if you're watching, I try to put these in the comments when I post the video, so that you don't have to remember. I'll go find them and I'll figure out how to write the authors' names and everything so that everybody can find them later. And so yeah.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for visiting, and we definitely want to hear when you have book news about your whatever's coming next. And
well, I love hearing that and I appreciate it. And I'm so glad that you connected with the book.
Sorry, yes. No, it sounded like you had a whirlwind bookstore big
it's been
weekend.
Yeah, I was glad I actually got to see you in person, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And Dickens.
Yeah, next time we'll have to find Maisie for you. But just so everybody knows, we do have copies, signed copies from Tara in the store right now at Vintage Books, which you can pick up in the store or call us or order online. And just thank you again, Tara. I hope you have a great holiday.
You too, Christy. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.